Koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Ingarani me Piripini te whakapaparanga mai, ko Lester me Bristol te whenua tupu, to Tamaki Makaru te kāinga, he Industry Research Liaison Manager o i New Zealand Food Safety Science and Research Centre, ko Kyla Archer, toku ingoa, tēnā koutou katoa. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Today I'm pleased to welcome Nina Hommels from Wageningen University and Research in the Netherlands. Nina is actually visiting New Zealand for a couple of months, and although she's currently in Australia for a week or so. Nina is a PhD student working on holistic food safety management. Her research emphasizes the integration of economic aspects into food safety strategies, aligning with her position at the Business Economics Group. With an academic background in microbiology, business administration, and food safety, Nina uses an interdisciplinary approach to her research. Today, she's here to speak to us about a holistic framework for food and feed safety in New Zealand. And she also presented at the joint NZIFST NZFSSRC conference in June this year. So if you have any questions, I will be hosting a Q&A with Nina at the end of her presentation. So please put your questions into the Q&A function at the bottom. So Nina, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Kyla. I'll just get my slides there. So as Kyla already mentioned, I'm talking about the holistic management and specifically on mycotoxins here in New Zealand. So a little bit about me. I took this picture at Agrodome when I went down to the conference that I presented at in Palmerston North. So I'm a PhD candidate currently in my third year. I'm working at the Business Economics Group, and a lot of my colleagues are working on agribusiness and a lot of interesting like life cycle assessment. Kyla already mentioned I've got a background in microbiology, food safety, and business, and I'm here in New Zealand for 3 months. I'm about halfway now, so I'm leaving in September. And it's great because I love traveling and meeting new people. So I already presented this at the conference as well, but my project is Food Safer, and we started in 2022, so we're finishing in about a year. And we're all over Europe, and we're working towards future food management of food safety. So we all do different things, but we all have the same end goal. And we also have an online community where we have food safety professionals that connect, and you can send in your research and do a lot of different things. We've got databases to check out different indicators of drivers of change. And you can join for free online. And if you like, there's also an app for on your phone, and you can just go to myfoodsafer.com. You don't have to, but some people like to. I've got a lot of questions about what my colleagues are doing. So what is Food Safer all about? And we all have the same end goal, but we're all working on little different aspects of the food system. So I'll just run through them really quickly. If there's anything that interests you, just let me know, because I can connect you to the people that are working on the specific part. And I think a lot of different things are going on. So first off, we've got mitigation of furans in industrial food sources. We've got rapid on-site testing of mycotoxins, analysis of persistent listeria, the assessment of, I think it's hepatitis virus in mostly Spanish sausages, but also I think Polish, and the food production impact on antimicrobial resistance, horizon scanning, tropane alkaloids, how they're being affected by gluten-free ingredients in pasta processing, and we also got a little bit of food fraud when we're looking at lead chromate addition in turmeric. So a lot of different aspects, and sometimes I look at my colleagues and they're doing amazing things, but I also tell you a little bit about what I'm doing. So I'm working on a holistic management framework, and I'm using the case study of mycotoxins here in New Zealand to demonstrate that framework. I've got a colleague who's working on the same framework, and he's demonstrating it with urban agriculture and pathogenic bacterial occurrence. So a little bit different, more on the biological side, and this is more the chemical side, but we're all working on the same framework. So I assume most of you know what mycotoxins are. They're secondary fungal metabolites, toxic for humans and animals, and it can be really difficult to manage them because they're very stable during processing. So I had interviews with 4 experts to gather some insights of what's going on here in New Zealand around mycotoxins. And today I'll be presenting these preliminary results from those interviews, and I'll also be talking about the survey that's still open to gather some more data. So first off, what did the experts say about the current risk perception now on mycotoxins? They all agreed it's not a really great concern. It's about average level when comparing to other hazards, and the primary focus is actually on microbial hazards and man-made contaminants. So just an average risk. So this safety or average risk is attributed to the New Zealand climate. Well, you're generally quite cold, which unfortunately I found out about as well, and also relatively dry, not very humid. A lot of fungi, they're okay, but they don't really like growing in New Zealand, and luckily for you, that also includes aflatoxin. Of course, this is not applicable for imported goods. They come from all over the world, which do have more humid and also warmer climates. None of the experts mention anything about multi-mycotoxin contamination, and this is where more than one mycotoxin occurs. And they generally have a synergetic effect. So it's not 1 + 1 is 2, but 1 + 1 is 3. And that's, it just becomes even more toxic. And what about perception of other groups? So not people working on food and feed safety, but consumers, processors, food business operators. Basically, the consumers don't even know they exist. And if they do, it's very low awareness. I think it's kind of about, for consumers almost everywhere in the world, all food that you buy is probably safe. That's what they assume. And then once it's back in the fridge, they might doubt it a little bit. But at the supermarket or at the greengrocer, they probably think it's all safe. The experts also mentioned that there's a lack of knowledge at processor level, not so much about awareness, but more about the occurrence and the toxicity of mycotoxins, and that the analytical costs are very high. So it's very difficult to test, to justify the testing, especially if it's not perceived as a really great issue. So what is currently being done around mycotoxins? We've got import surveillance, and this is especially for peanuts because they're a big carrier of aflatoxin. There are some primary industry regulatory limits. I think there's only 2 different mycotoxins being regulated, and that's a risk-based policy. So if the risk does change, they're prepared to introduce new regulatory limits. Then there's also industry-level quality attributes. So does a batch look very moldy, that kind of thing, that can then choose to either reject or do something else with the batch. And then for feed, we've got what I find really interesting, a negative feedback loop. So if symptoms of mycotoxin occurrence is happening in, for example, in poultry, they can actually ring up the feed mill and ask for binders or dilution of the batch, because by diluting, you might not get any symptoms. All right. All the experts agreed that the mycotoxin risk is changing, which I thought was interesting, and they mentioned a few different things of why that's happening. First, and not foremost, is the consumer behavioral patterns. So people are eating different things. We've got a lot of different diets, like veganism or FODMAP diets, and these things are more prominent than they used to be, and so people have different things they're eating, which might have more or less, or at least a different profile of mycotoxins. And then the really, really big one is climate change. If climate change goes on as it is, New Zealand is probably going to get warmer and more humid. And this is something fungi love. And we already have fungi here, but they're not really the most toxic ones. So probably the mycotoxin fingerprint will change. And quite likely that will introduce more toxic mycotoxins. This is also the case for imported goods, and they also mentioned geopolitical conflict there. You can think about, what's going on in Ukraine. It used to be a really big major or a really major grain exporter, and of course that's a little bit different right now. So if the risk is changing, what is going on around future management? New technologies were mentioned for the rapid testing and potential for breeding. But it was also mentioned there's a lack of future-oriented policies right now. Just keeping up with the screening and the monitoring what's going on, that's already taking up most of the bandwidth. But then to think about the future, that's not really occurring, both for import and domestic. So we know that mycotoxins are likely to become a pressing concern here in New Zealand. And I think maybe now it's the time, while the toxic levels are low, to use this opportunity to actually strengthen proactively. So future forward management. So we've seen a little bit on what's going on now, the current mycotoxin management, and these are from experts with all different backgrounds. They mostly work on risk assessment, but they have different industries or different stakeholder groups. And I'm really glad that they talked to me because they had a lot of knowledge and they did find some time in their schedules. Right now we have a short survey. It's Everybody completes it under 15 minutes, and some even do it under 10. It has two parts. The first part is about what you or your stakeholder group find very important, and then looking at different management activities that we gathered from the interviews and how they stack up to what you find important. We're still collecting responses there, and we do need a few more. So it would be really great if you have any food or feed knowledge, and it doesn't have to be very high-level mycotoxin knowledge, but you're a little bit related to food or feed safety. Please go ahead and fill that out. So during the interview, we've gathered different management activities, and these are used for decision support. The end goal is to create a decision support tool so that when a policy or decision maker needs to choose, they can look at these activities and decide, okay, what's going on? Do we have positive flows or negative flows for each of these activities? But there were very different types of activities, so we put them into these three categories. So we've got identification, which usually is happening at the start. De-escalation, it's really about once something's occurred, how can we reduce the impact? And then control, to avoid something occurring, so that there's not an outbreak of a hazard or anything like that. For each of these categories, we've chosen 2 management activities from the interview to try and cover as much as possible of the management that's going on now. And I'll introduce them to you shortly. It's a little bit of a long slide, but I'll read through it. So for the identification, we selected mycotoxin surveillance by industries and maintain and improve lab capabilities to analyze low-level contamination. For the de-escalation activities, we've got strategic crop timing for planting and harvest, optimized fungicide and optimized fungicide management when we're looking at dose frequency and also timing. For control, we've got plant breeding approaches for resistance. That can be either traditional or with gene editing techniques, and also increased awareness of mycotoxin risk above and over visual quality concerns, especially in light of climate change, because you can't always see a mycotoxin occurring, especially when you're looking at a big batch, and analytical testing is difficult to do. We're not comparing these management activities, so it's not mycotoxin surveillance versus maintain and improve lab capabilities. It's about when a decision has to be made, you can understand how each management activity is impacting the holistic aspects that go along with that. So is there maybe somebody being very negatively impacted? Can we maybe adjust the policy so that that's not the case? Or can we balance the negative and positive flows? And why are we doing all of this? And I'll show you. We've got this framework, which is a food safer framework. And here we need to go from the case, the little blue in the top, all the way on the right-hand side to the holistic outcome. And we're doing all these different steps to create a decision support for each case study. And this framework is a methodological framework that other people can apply to different hazards or different risks in the future as well. As I mentioned before, I've got a colleague who's working on urban agriculture with this framework, and we're doing the mycotoxins here. So we already did the first 2 gray vertical parts, and now we're working on the survey. And you can see the part 1 and the part 2 of the survey there as well. So first, with the triple bottom line criteria, we're trying to get these weights. So we want to understand how important everything is to the respondent. And then in the second part, we want to understand how these activities stack up per triple bottom line criteria. And that will be combined with drivers of change, with a little bit of an early warning system to create this holistic outcome. So what is triple bottom line? Because I've mentioned it a few times now. We're looking at people, planet, and profit. So what happens a lot in studies is that just looks at one, just at people, just at planet, or just at profit. But we're trying to look at all of them. So these management activities are affecting all of these 3 at once. So I don't believe in isolating. I think you need to look at them holistically. And we already did this weighting in Paris. So this was in June with the food safer people. I think I had 25 or 26 people respond. And on the right-hand side, you can actually see the results. So they thought health risk reduction is the most important by far, with 21.6%. And all the way at the bottom, you can see the little costs. These weren't considered as important as all the social aspects that you see at the top. So here I did it in a very large group, and now I'm trying to do it in a survey. So this is the QR code to the survey, and I would really, really grateful if you can find the time to fill it out. I will also send the link. Probably Michael will send it to you after the survey. If you are more interested in doing it in this guided format, like here in Paris, you can contact me at my email or via the center. And then we can do a guided participation, and I can meet you in online, either one-on-one or in a small group. Maybe you've got a few colleagues that want to join. And if you have any questions during the survey or you're doubting yourself, I'll be right there. You can directly ask any questions. And as I mentioned, it's probably going to be less than 15 minutes, and you'll be helping my research, but also the future forward mycotoxin management here in New Zealand. I'm still in Australia. So thank you very much, and I'll stop sharing my screen and see if there's any questions.
Sorry, I lost my button for my video and audio there. So thanks, Nina. That's really helpful. I don't know if you actually might want to leave the slide up with the QR code in case anybody does want to scan it and do that. Yeah, so we will also follow up with everybody who is attending today and is registered when the video is published, and follow up with the survey details as well. So I guess I'll get into some of the other questions that I have in a minute, but sort of how did you choose New Zealand as one of your sort of places to do all your case studies?
Were multiple reasons. First and foremost, I needed to speak the language. So that already eliminated some countries where I simply can't communicate with the experts and the people. Another part is that it's quite small, and you've got a pretty good community here. So you actually have the connections to talk to all the different people. Then also in our project, we had talked to Nikki before, and we saw that she's working on emerging risks, and mycotoxin is an emerging risk. And this was a really good fit, and Nikki agreed to host me. And then once I figured that this mycotoxin risk is also changing here in New Zealand, I think you're in a really good position to actually proactively manage it, which is a great fit for the framework as well. So there's a few different reasons, some logistic and some just because it's a good case study for the framework.
Great. Yeah, we're glad to have you. Do you have any sort of initial sort of views on how New Zealand is perceived in this space with regards to emerging risks and also sort of the management of those types of things?
I think from abroad, New Zealand is considered very green and very clean. And I think that is true currently for mycotoxins. But when you're looking at your industries as well, where you've got imported feed and imported grains also for food, that's a bit of a risk because you've got a very long transport time, and you're also importing from countries that do have a lot of mycotoxins. And I think it's a matter of time before you're going to have more toxic mycotoxins occurring because of the climate change, but also, I've heard of trials trying to grow peanuts up in Northland, which is just asking for aflatoxins, honestly. So I think it's you're probably at a tipping point. That's what I think. But that's just my personal opinion. So please take it as such.
So you showed the slide of you doing the guided survey in Paris. Were they specifically with sort of French companies or French industry, so all European?
They were all European. I don't think probably wasn't even a French person among us.
Oh, yeah.
No, we were hosted by a Canadian who used to study at that university. Mm-hmm. And every year we go to a different location. So it happened to be available and central and easy to reach. But everybody's from different countries. I think there's like 14 different countries. Probably there's a French person, most likely.
Yeah. And where else are you looking to conduct your surveys? Or have you not thought about that yet?
The urban agriculture, it's probably going to be in some big cities. So I think my colleague was looking at Singapore and Dubai as well. I'm not sure if he's decided if there's any more, because this urban agriculture usually occurs in these high-tech big cities with not a lot of space. And this survey on mycotoxins will only be here in New Zealand because it's about this case here.
Okay. Have you, if there's anybody else that wants to ask any question, there is the Q&A function down at the bottom. So yeah, get your questions in. Have you considered asking different types of managers to complete the survey and to potentially see a change in sort of their responses over the triple bottom line, their focus of the triple bottom line within their organization?
Absolutely. And that's also what we did in Paris. So we've got different people. Some people are really from, government regulatory. Other people are more business. And they have a very different view on these triple bottom line. I think government generally is very poor. They're caring about this health risk reduction. And it's not that business doesn't care about the health risk reduction, but they might have a little bit of a different, let's say, cocktail of this triple bottom line. And that's really where the interesting happens. When you're trying to make a decision or trying to implement a new policy, you need to understand how it affects everybody, right? And by having these different people respond, and that's also why we've got the survey, these interviews, they were very high level, but the survey, it might seem as high level, but you really need to respond from your heart, from instinct. There's a lot of text that you can read through, but mostly it's quite easy to just click. You will probably have your instinct just tell you, okay, this is what it feels like. And we want to understand how these different groups, different stakeholders actually view the management activities and view different problems. And I hope the survey is accessible for everybody and that they also fill it in to represent their different stakeholders, because in the end, this will inform policy. And if you let yourself be heard now, get your voice in, let's say, you can actually influence policy and also influence how this triple bottom line weights. So what is most important for your stakeholder? And this can be used also, besides mycotoxins on other contaminants, for example. And then the questions in the second part, they're very mycotoxin specific.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So we've got a couple of questions. So there are lots of different mycotoxins. Do you think we are more susceptible in New Zealand to some more than in particular than others?
Yeah, there's a different mix. So I think there's like ergo, and there's a few other ones that I hate the words of. So ochratoxin A, for example, OTA, and try something. There's a few ones that are occurring here in New Zealand, and it's not that they're not toxic, but they're also not occurring in very high levels right now. So even for those that are occurring now, if it gets more humid and if it gets warmer, they will probably occur more as well. So it's not just that one or two new toxins will be introduced. No, it's also that the existing toxins will occur more. And, more toxins, more toxicity. And then you've got the multi-mycotoxin contamination as well, which I didn't mention as one of the risks that can happen. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. I have another one. I don't know if you are able to answer this or just might be able to speak to it on a broader level, but what are the test methods that you're using to test the mycotoxins? Or I guess the people that you are interviewing, how are they looking at it?
So I know that ELISA can be used, but it's not very accurate and can also take some time. The most accurate is mass spectrometry methods, and there is a few different ones. But they're very expensive, and they take, if you get a big batch, you're probably going to test maybe 25 grams times 5 over that batch. The likelihood of finding your toxins, if it's very low level, is quite difficult. That's why also one of the management activities is to maintain and also improve lab capabilities for this low level contamination. And of course, if it's super high levels, you're 25 grams, but if you're probably going to find it. But if you're dividing that over, let's say 3 tons, how much are you actually testing? And then you've got this mass spectrometry, which not a lot of people have the capabilities to do that. And it also takes time. That's why one of the colleagues is also working on this food phone rapid on-site. And it's just like, is it there? Yes or no? And it can be very quick. And even it's almost like a COVID test. So you can just shake your little thing and drip it on some paper and it tells you yes or no, it's there.
And then allow you to do any further details if you want to, detect the quantity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are you able to share a little more on import surveillance and what kind of approaches are being used to detect mycotoxins?
So that's really that's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. This is where I just talked to the experts where they were sharing that it's going on, and I know that it's a big thing for peanuts and things like that, and also making sure that they're following just international guidelines. So we've got Codex Alimentarius, but I don't know exactly which testing is being used like, specifically for import surveillance.
Thanks. And you just kind of touched on this, but will your research feed into the FAO mycotoxin work and into the risk management program on mycotoxins at the Codex level?
That would be really nice, but that's like being invited to the NBA as a basketball player, right? So
Hey, we all have aspirational goals.
yeah, no, of course that would be great, and I do think that it could help and be beneficial, because it's very risk based. It's also about future forward, and I think these are really important things. But I also am aware that a lot of people are, working on these things, and to get your research out there, I don't know, it would be great. Yeah, that would be probably my answer.
Okay, the aspirational goal will manifest
Yeah.
this for you. Um, so just in regards to the survey, which the QR code is still on screen for, I know that you've had some interviews already with some people that we've managed to connect you with, and there's also been some responses from the online survey
Mm-hmm.
just individually. Are there any particular sort of industries or stakeholder groups that you're specifically seeking some input from, and if that because we've got a range of industry, science, and some MPI people on the call here. But yeah, if there's anyone that you want to specifically call out to have their responses from.
Honestly, everybody's welcome. Please do fill it in. I think mostly the scientists are a little bit more keen. So for the industry and the MPI people, please do join in and let your voice be heard. It's important research, and maybe it's not FAO strategic framework research, but I think it will still be really beneficial, and for others also to build up on that.
Yeah. I can't remember how far through your PhD are you?
I'm in my third year, and we do a 4-year PhD in the Netherlands.
Oh,
So I've got one more year and like 2 months to go. Yeah.
and those participating in the survey, is there an option to sort of be kept up to date with any outputs and things that you publish as a result of this?
So the survey is anonymous. At the end, there's an option to add an email address of somebody you think might be interested in either the survey, but you can also put your own email address, and then I can update you with the the new things that are going on. And I'll probably be sending something to the center at the end as well. If we do publish, or if I'm presenting somewhere, I will, send it to the center, and hopefully, or either the emailing list, I can send it. Yeah, that's no problem, because we've got the mailing list of the participants who are, listening today, and my email address is on there as well. So if you're really interested, just email me directly, and I will respond. So yeah, definitely, I can keep people who are interested in. I can keep them updated.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that's it for questions, and we're at 12:30 now, so we've made good time, so everybody can get half an hour of their lunch breaks back. So thank you so much for your time today, Nina. It's a pleasure and an honor to support your research, and to have the centre and its members contribute to a part of an international project, which maybe will be on the on the FAO risk management framework one day. So as usual, this has been recorded and will be available with previous webinars on our website. So it's under events, seminars. Again, please let us know if there are any subjects that you'd like to hear about. We will also follow up with everybody that's registered and has attended today when the video is published, and we'll provide those survey details again in case you haven't managed to get through on the QR code. Our next seminar is on Friday, the 29th of August with Vittorio Fattori from the FAO. So he's in New Zealand for the CTAC ACTRA conference at the end of August, and is kindly spending some time with us and speaking with our network. The registrations and the talk details will be released tomorrow. So thank you very much for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you on the 29th. Ka kite ana.
Thank you. I will